But the power of VenueNet is really incredible, and being able to log on and see what people are talking about, and everybody helping everybody, is such a great thing. And I looked at this as an opportunity. I came to my team and said, "Hey, look, we do a lot of this stuff, and it looks like people are starting to spark some conversations, and it's a good opportunity for us to put something together and share some of the things that we're doing with the rest of you." So appreciate you all being here. And I want to introduce my team, Donna Childs. Donna, she leads our public assembly interiors team. She's done a lot of great work throughout the country, including Mercedes-Benz Stadium. She's working currently on the Tennessee Titans football stadium, as well as a lot of other projects with some of the food service teams throughout the country. And then working with Donna is Leah Leto, and Leah has done basically almost every project that Donna's done, and some. And Leah is going to be kind of walking us through the presentation today. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to her. And I would also say that throughout the presentation, if you have questions, feel free to stop and ask them. That makes this is truly not just a presentation; it's more of a dialogue. So I would encourage you to ask away. So that being said, Leah, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a great day. With the agenda. So kind of going through why renovate, and then some restroom design trends and requirements, and then Q&A at the end. But again, like Eric said, if you guys have any comments or want to talk about something while we go through, like, totally feel free. So why renovate? Again, not a very serious conversation, but also serious today. So just threw in some photos of, does any of this look familiar? A lot of water, is anything out of order, some outdated finishes. This guy right here, I've told Eric and Donna this happened to me before. So privacy installs is a big thing. So just kicking it off with that. The next thing that we're going to go into is a hands-free, germs-free experience. So just some survey facts that we found. 22% operate the flusher with the toilet. 67% use paper towels to touch all surfaces. 26% open and close doors with their hip. And 55% use elbow to avoid contact. I'm a hip person, so I open and close everything that way. Updated finishes in products that we're currently using is kind of an all-in-one. So you have your soap, your wash, and your dry all in one at the sink. In a lot of the times we specify with a top load soap, less maintenance. But if you don't want to go that route, what we have also done is you shorten the distance between your trash and paper towels in your sink. So you'll see in several of these images where the paper towels are located next to the sink, and that's to minimize a lot of water getting everywhere else. That's not like possible to minimize all water, but it helps. And this reduces the owner's risk associated with slippery, wet floors. It can reduce owner building management costs on water to have everything integrated and close. It also reduces owner square footage and construction costs, and it can reduce owner's building management costs for paper towel usage and maintenance. So updated vibe. This is just an example of some that we've pulled. The Mercedes-Benz Stadium, Pennsylvania Convention Center was a nice update. They did something that was time period to that building. We've done event centers as well as stadiums and convention centers, obviously. So we want to update the finishes for all of our clients to be cleanable, durable, but also that it looks good. We have done everywhere from the retail down here, Tyson's Galleria Mall, where we've updated it, to an event space as well up in Chicago. Just an idea for what we've done. A big thing to do in these areas is to have welcoming entrances. So how do we incorporate a lot of seating, an area for respite or an area to wait for somebody while they're going to the bathroom, or a good meeting place? It's an easy locator for people to meet you, especially in convention centers and stadiums. So you always want to have that distance close to the bathrooms. We've also started to incorporate a lot of artwork in the bathrooms, both inside, in on the outside. We want to have it not just plain, but we also have spec stuff that's vandal proof. And you can also just liven up a space. You can change the artwork out. You can do a digital display to help people that are using the restroom as well. This is an example of one of our latest work. This was an existing hotel and conference room center restroom. This was a pure cosmetic renovation. The only thing we added was a wall. You'll see that we've updated a lot of the flooring, the lighting, the finishes, and also the sink fixtures, which you'll see. This is a process rendering that we walk clients through, either stagnant renderings, or we can walk them through an Inkscape as well, which is a digital program. And then this is the finished product. So we incorporated, you can't really see it, but we incorporated paper towels closer to the sinks. We also did that top load soap and faucet. And then we did add this wall here, but we ensured that they didn't need to add any sprinklers or additional exhaust by allowing this gap in the doors. But we made the privacy, or we made the restrooms more private by adding these doors and wall, but also helped minimize costs for the client.
Another thing to point out here, Leah, can you back up just for a second, is that those look like wood panels, but they're not. They're plastic laminate panels.
Yes.
So it gives you the warmth and the look of wood, but it's not real wood. Additionally, behind the mirrors is not marble, that is porcelain tile. So there's ways to achieve an upscale look, but keep products that are durable and easy to clean. So you're going, wow, she just told us it'd be durable and easy to clean, but this doesn't look that way. It is. It's truly very
Yes.
easy to take care of.
Absolutely. And talking about privacy, another idea is minding the gap. A lot of new partitions that we put in restrooms, if this is your partition wall and this is your door, it comes with this L-shaped unit. So you really do not get any gap within the new systems. We're seeing a lot of taller partitions, floor to ceiling, or floor to like 9-10 feet as well, to help with those privacy aspects. Again, we have added full walls and doors, but with this example, we did have to add additional sprinklers and exhaust. So it all just depends on what the client wants to achieve within their restrooms. And then again, this is in the Savannah Convention Center that we're working on now. These are stainless steel, but these have minimal gaps as well. And then indicator usage. I don't know if you guys have gone to a bathroom, you kind of look under the toilet, you're trying to see feet. Where do I go to the bathroom at? One thing that really helps that and helps people progress through your restrooms quicker is by having an indicator. So there's several different types that are out there right now. It just depends on if you want to run electricity to them or want them more manual, but they have integrated LEDs. These are really nice because it's a really good visual when someone's trying to find the toilet. Men don't really have the issue quite as much as women, but it does really help move people through. There's the manual one where you just turn the lock and it goes red for occupied, green for open. And then if anybody's been to Buc-ee's down in Texas or Georgia and Florida now, they're expanding. They have these restroom indicator lights that turn red and green if the stall is open or closed. They even are starting to incorporate a signage at the front of the restroom entrance that tells you how many are available and which way to go if it's more than like one aisle of restrooms. Talking about gender neutral bathrooms, which is a hot topic. It's an all-in-one facility, and you can have different floor plans. To the left, you usually have a sink that's placed in a common area, and you can rotate around that area. And then the stalls are typically floor to ceiling height. You can also have plans that have all in one. So you have the sink, the toilet, everything is compartmentalized into one unit. And this allows for more privacy and ease for people, but also parents with small children. It's easier to take them into gender neutral bathrooms sometimes. And there's a little bit of code information. I will not read this off to you, but it was adopted in 35 states that in the plumbing code that does allow for multi-use. So we do have some guidance if that's something someone would choose to do. This is some examples. A lot of them are schools, but the bottom one is bottom left is Colorado Convention Center that we've worked on. In the Wisconsin Convention Center, you can see those sinks are easily placed in an area where it's easy of access. It's out in the middle. And then also those either full doors or floor to ceiling partitions. And gender neutral restrooms tie very well in with the idea of swing restrooms, which we've done in stadiums now and the convention center. So traditionally you have your men, your women's, and then you typically have a family or janitor's area located either in or adjacent to those areas. We also always want to typically do no doors just for ease of access in and out, but also germs-free experience when you're going into the restroom. And then in this plan, you'll see some changes to the back. Right now, we have the baby changing tables located in the back with ADA access. But to turn that plan into a swing restroom or flex restroom, where this could be men or women's. If you have a Taylor Swift concert and the majority of your attendance is women, you can make these restrooms either all women, or if you have a convention that's predominantly men, you can swing them to men too. So you would keep that same entrance, but you could add a door to the back, and that way people can circulate around with inside the restroom, and it can all be men or women's. A good process example is the Colorado Convention Center. We did a combination of women's, men's, and gender neutral restrooms in some areas. And they also wanted to be able to swing their restrooms as well if they have a different type of conference that has a larger amount of men or women. And what we did with them is in the plan, just to make the experience a little nicer for people that are using the restrooms, if the men's, we actually added a drop down within to kind of block those urinals. Here's a quick rendering of the space. But we also are able to add art to that. So it brings that art element within the restrooms, and you can flex those spaces really well.
If I can just jump in on that too. One thing
Yeah.
which we did too is we actually ended up adding more toilet stalls to the men's room than what was required by code, just so that when it was a swing space, that when you actually switched it from a men's room to a women's room and covered the urinals, that you were actually able to get a kind of a, you weren't just getting like 2 or 3 toilets, you were getting much more. So it made sense to actually make that switch.
Correct. Yeah, we overstaffed the men's, or we overplumbed the men's for that switch to happen. And these are just rest stop images, but it also is a good example of not necessarily a swing restroom, but if you have a large restroom, you're able to add a door at certain areas. So if you have an event that doesn't have a ton of people, to cut down on that maintenance, you could possibly add a door or a drop down that eliminates a portion of the restrooms. So you have less cleaning, less maintenance within that area, depending on what event is happening. And then we're just going to talk about a couple more inclusive areas. So some family restrooms, changing spaces, lactation, and sensory rooms. So these are all rooms that we're starting to add in these larger convention and stadium projects. So for family restrooms, we're starting to call them changing places for some of them, because in 2024, the IBC has mandated for large assembly spaces like colleges or stadiums or highway rest stops to incorporate that adult changing tables, which takes a larger square footage for the space. It's usually installed in a family restroom or a single user restroom to ensure their privacy or needs are met. And it's designed with adjustable height, larger surfaces, and a wider range of weight capacity for these people. And that's just a couple examples of what they may look like in the space. Lactation and mothers rooms. We have put these in the Wisconsin Convention Center down here. There's several requirements that are needed to be met depending on what you would like to add and code. So typically a countertop and a sink is needed. Soap, paper towels, mirror, your typical hook and waist, and then a privacy curtain if you were to install multiple seats within that lactation space. That typically is more on the corporate business side. So your actual employees, that would be the requirement. They all have to meet ADA standards, and they typically have a fridge, and you have to provide actual seating. You can't provide anything with a toilet within the space. It has to be seating. And the law, depending on your state and code and county, and your number of employers, it flexes on how much requirements you have to meet. But here's an example of the integration of the sinks within the space, the curtain idea, if you have more than one mother at a time in that space. And then in airports, you'll start to see a lot. They actually make portable ones now. So if they're lacking that space, they actually bring in these portable ones to allow for a lactation space. So sensory rooms are a larger thing. We also just did this at the Wisconsin Convention Center, but the largest one that just got installed was at the Pittsburgh Airport up here in the top left corner. So this is for people that needs need to be met. It's the goal to regulate their nervous system. So if they're overstimulated with either loud noises or too many people, this is an area of respite for them to help calm their nervous system back down. There's 3 types of ways that you can incorporate it. You can take a permanent space within the venue and make a sensory room for those people, or you can have a mobile sensory room space where people have actually brought in like a van or a trailer into the area to allow for those. And then 3 is a temporary space. So this is maybe depending on what event you're holding, you could kind of build it, pop it up, pop it back down, and move it for different spaces, for different events. Here's some additional imagery. So within these rooms, again, that's that airport, but you want to have soft seating incorporated. You want to have a lot of warm lighting, and then also tactile elements that help with people kind of like fidget spinners to help get their mind back at ease. Then we're incorporating just some unique ideas that we have been seeing or that we found. So the integration of TVs into mirrors, not necessarily a new thing, but it's a way to add marketing or ROI. You could also add information. So at airport departures, at a stadium, you could play the game on the TV, or at the conventions, you can maybe have what is the agenda for that day, what is happening, the different events. This is an idea of storage in the top right corner where you can have your tablet or phone or computer integrated with your purse. I'm not sure how long this will be selling on the market, but it was an idea. And then the integration of towels or soap within the mirror. So you're able to build out a space on the wall to include those elements. So again, it gets it closer to the sink to minimize that water issue.
Okay, Leo, While you're on this page, just a couple of other things to bring up about bathrooms. And one of them was the paper holders for seat covers.
Mhm.
Um, we definitely do recommend and always provide seat covers for the toilets in the restrooms. You had a slide on that. I don't know where it went, but
It's actually the next one.
okay. Oh, I'm so sorry.
No, you're good. So this is just a summary of what we typically specify. It's not necessarily the exact product, but it's an example. So what Don was talking about was this toilet seat cover dispenser. We do always still include those, as well as, we went through this, but the sink, the soap, the faucet, top filler, hand dryers, we typically like to specify recess now with a cove if needed. So that way it minimizes that water that's hitting the floor as well. Integrated mirrors with lighting, grab bars, of course, automatic and manual toilets. It depends. We've specified both, but everything that we've specified recently, everybody has requested, everything needs to be hardwired. So no battery operated soap or towel dispenser, hardwired. So they're not rechanging those batteries. And then trash cans, partitions, baby changing. Sometimes we build the baby changing into a space, or we can have it recessed. And then for tampons or pads, we don't typically specify an actual wall mount anymore. A lot of places have like a courtesy basket that have those included, or you can ask guest services or someone close that has that located. And then thank you so much for your time. That was a quick run through of everything. And if anybody wants to go back and revisit a slide, please feel free or have any questions.
Thanks, Leah. Anybody have any questions? We kind of went through that pretty quickly, but yeah.
So can we go
Rob, I
back
see
one
you got your
slide
hand up.
to the equipment?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So remember, my comments are mine and mine alone, okay? But I'm on a personal mission to completely eliminate integrated paper towel and trash. That's a bow brick wall insert type of thing. Nobody has the staff to actually manage those in a way that it doesn't look bad from the second piece of paper, meaning they're not designed physically. They're actually designed to hold paper at the top. And unless somebody's going to stick their hand down there and push it down, the second or third person in the restroom means it's already looks as if it's at its capacity. I hate everything about them. Okay, so just fair warning. I really like what you did in the beginning in talking about integrating trash and minimizing the any distance between when you get your when you wash your hands and dry your hands, that type of thing. I've read a lot of studies about, just from a sustainability standpoint, what's better? Is it better? Is it better to have paper towels? Is it better to have, airplane engine assisted dryers? There's most of the studies I read is like 50-50. On one hand, there's a bunch of costs related to from a sustainability standpoint of actually cutting the trees and making the paper and doing all that. From a germ-free environment, every study shows that high velocity accelerators just basically blow germs like all over the restroom, and then
Correct.
depending on the balance of your HVAC system, could be driving it back out of the concourse, that type of thing. It's 50-50. I'm not going to die on that hill. It's just something to sort of be aware of. But the idea that you've incorporated, and the lower left-hand side here is a really great example, that you've incorporated the idea that we have a counter slab sink. That means everything's going to be captured there. We don't have individual sinks so that we can inappropriately position soap dispensers so that it drops on the floor or soils the sink and that type of thing. So I'm a huge fan of this. I'm a huge fan of the integrated trash into there. When I look at the thing on the lower left in particular, that has a chance to be successful. To me, it's a huge win versus thinking of the mechanics of the counter slab sink, but now having to move and turn and drop water on the floor on the right-hand side to get one of those wall insert trash things. So not a huge fan of that. In the middle thing is really interesting. I actually put I unfortunately actually put the first of those in counter paper towel dispensers in Nashville some 27 years ago. Personally, again, remember my comments are mine. I would never do it again, and I certainly wouldn't do it if. And here's my big problem. The issue I have with sinks and faucets is that the angle of deflection, the position of the faucet, and the angle of deflection basically puts the stream up against the back of the sink. So your hands are against the back of the sink. Your hands are against that. There's a bunch of dead space in front, and if your hands are there, then those counters are going to be full of water. And if we play that out in this scenario, then that water is now into that paper towel dispenser. So again, Russ's comments, Russ's only, hate them. And I wish I knew what to do to fix the fixture business, the sink and fixture business. So we actually used the unused 2/3 of the space. And listen, I've measured all this. I promise you, it's just really bad. And we keep doing the same thing over and over and over. And then when the counter's full of water and the floor is full of water and it looks like crap, we're shocked. So anyway.
Russ, one thing we've done, Russ, is to pull the sink forward and raise up right behind it by a few inches and put the dispenser in that raised portion. You just have to be really careful with the reach because of ADA, but we have been able to successfully do that, and that solves the water problem you're talking about because it's raised higher than the sink by 3-4 inches.
Yeah. But Donna, how does no one understand that if I have to put my hands underneath, and I'm going to say it'll happen in what I'm looking at here in these middle pictures, and the rest of the sink is unused. It blows my mind that it's like the definition of insanity. It's the same thing over and over and over again, and somehow we haven't made any progress in this in literally 50 years. So anyway,
Yeah.
I apologize for the editorial.
Well, thank you, Russ. Appreciate your comments as always. Rob, I saw you have your hand up. You have a question?
Yeah, I had two things. One of them Russ touched on. I was just curious, like what your experience was with those in-counter paper towels holders, just getting drenched with water. I think you kind of answered the question already, but I've encountered it myself on a number of occasions. So I was just curious if when you've installed those, if you've had a lot of issues with that. But I think you kind of addressed that. My other question is about partition height and length. From a restroom user, a door that goes floor to ceiling or, floor to almost ceiling is ideal. And that's what I encounter like in almost every other country when I use a public restroom. But as a venue operator, I see the longer the door becomes, the more opportunity there is for something other than using the restroom happening behind that door that someone can go in and lock. And one of my buildings is open to the public. So we have a lot of issues with, unhoused and other people using the restrooms and sort of setting up camp in restrooms. And those types of partitions would certainly be problematic in that situation. So I'm just curious what people's experience have been when they've used longer and taller partitions, if you've had negative feedback similar to what I'm describing, or if it's all been positive, or what your experience has been.
I think, it all depends on your particular venue, right? So, I mean, what you described in your venue, this is probably not a great solution, for you. But, in some other facilities that, the client might, be looking for something like this and spec something like this, it might make a little bit better sense. To your point, Rob, I would, anybody else who's on the call would love to hear some additional feedback, on that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to client preference. We've had that conversation with multiple clients. And some clients are perfectly happy with doing this. We've brought that up. They've brought it up as an issue. We've brought it up as an issue. So it's a well-known thing, but it just depends on the venue and the client, what they're okay with.
mean, the use case matters. Like it's not just the water in the in-counter deals, by the way. The springs are wonky. To me, my experience with them is not something that's positive. So, but you could probably get away with that in a, I don't know, Ritz-Carlton, I guess, or even a Courtyard. I'm not sure. The use case, I think, makes a difference in terms of which of these solutions you choose to execute.
Yeah, and you've
Correct.
got sports industry versus the meetings industry, convention, conference centers versus, arenas and stadiums and things like that. So you're right. It all has to do with the, kind of venue type and the type of event that you're hosting.
Yeah. And again, this was just showing like the range of ideas, not necessarily of like what to do. And we have those conversations with clients before we spec anything of what their facilities and maintenance and everybody, what those people are comfortable with that we specify.
I've got another question
Hey,
related to
Lex, I see your hand's up.
partitions, if you don't.
Oh,
Sorry, I
go
didn't
ahead,
mean to
Rob.
jump over something.
Okay.
Yeah, we recently converted, I use the term loosely, two of our restrooms in in our concert hall to gender neutral restrooms. There was a demand for that, so we converted a men's room and a woman's room. The conversion really was just largely about signage and making sure that the urinals had, dividers between them, which oddly they didn't for 25 years. But the signage now outside of the restrooms, one of them that used to be the men's room says, gender neutral, and then it says stalls and urinals, so people know what they're walking into. And the other one says gender neutral stalls only, which was what used to be the women's room. So that's really the extent to which we did anything to convert them. I'm curious about, again, about partition length and height when it comes to gender neutral restrooms. Have you experienced, a really strong preference for higher partition heights or differences in partitions when you're designing a gender neutral restroom versus what might be standard?
I think it comes down to also what I was explaining about the addition of exhaust and sprinklers. So for Colorado, we did do the full height partitions, floor to ceiling. That was a request in a meeting walkthrough that we went through with them, but that again requires that addition of the MEP within that space. But for Wisconsin, you can see there's normal height partitions, and that helps eliminate some of the cost.
Got it.
So
Okay.
they do go to the floor, but they do not go all the way up to the ceiling.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Hey, Alexis, I know you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're talking sort of bathrooms of the future, but I have kind of rudimentary comment and question. I guess my first comment I was going to make is when we were talking about air dryers versus paper towels. I know, again, kind of it's being venue specific. When I worked in a theater in Los Angeles where we did a lot of television, we could never even entertain an air dryer because of the noise that it was creating for those productions, whether it be an award show or a television show. So that was just always kind of off the table for us. Going back to kind of Russ's comments about, again, this is really kind of a rudimentary question. I mean, if we're always kind of struggling with, where's the water going? How are we containing the water? What recommendations do you have for finishes? I mean, finishes that might, prevent slipping or might be more quick dry, for some of us that aren't necessarily, I mean, I've got exhibit halls with like marble restrooms, finishes that just don't match, right? And so approaching that just from a very kind of like, what works for those type of environments if you can't rip everything out?
Yeah, Dawn, I don't know if you want to talk about this or I can give it a shot too.
Yeah, we've really struggled with water on the floor. That's the biggest thing we want to prevent. And honestly, in order to maintain that floor, the floor needs to be some type of tile. If you start to try to put other products on the floor, from a maintenance standpoint, it's going to get nasty and germy, and you don't want that. So you're almost, you're kind of forced into doing the tile on the floor. You just need to drain it well. And honestly, we typically do what you're seeing here on the left side, where we try to integrate trash always in that front line so that you don't as soon as a person has to leave the sink and go like this, there's going to be water on your floor. It's not a good situation. The coefficient of friction of the tile, the higher it gets, the harder it is to mop. So there's this balance of making it, hot. Of course, it's got to meet code, but anything too far above code is hard to clean, right? So you're kind of in this, okay, I don't want it, you know, slippery, but you also don't want it to have a lot of grit in it either. So unfortunately, I'm sorry, I don't have a magic bullet for that one. But if anybody else does, that'd be awesome. But I haven't run across it in my 40 years of doing this.
Keeping
Any other
paper
questions?
towels right there. I don't know if anyone can hear me. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, sorry, I'm on two different things and I'm sitting on the floor in an airport. But yeah, I didn't want to hijack the call at all. But because you guys design beautiful restrooms, so let's just start with that. So it's very exciting to see, all the finishes and the design and artwork that goes into everything, and the functionality, of these restrooms is like a separate thing to look at and address. And you guys have addressed a lot of that. So, if you're going to use an air dryer, you have already, tried to determine the best use around that. And, certainly I think in a lot of new spaces they are still putting air dryers, but hand drying with paper towels is certainly the more preferred option, especially for someone that needs a towel for other reasons than hand drying. But the design that you have on the left there with the mirrors, and I think you can put towels behind there, I think would be ideal because the person is washing and they're drying in the same spot and then they're just throwing away and not dripping on the floor. So I think that's a key to design. But you also want to have like the highest capacity that you can behind that mirror so employees don't need to constantly get back there and get in the way of someone trying to wash and dry their hands as well, which is very important. So just wanted to throw that in there. And Russ, I agree with so much of what you said earlier. And so there's lots of options around that. And Eric, I think we've spoken before. I'd be certainly happy to provide you guys some options for design as well, outside of maybe some of the ones that you've recommended. So I'll talk more on that on a different call, but just wanted to jump in really quickly.
Thanks, Karen. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Hey, anybody else have any thoughts or questions? Or it's definitely been a good dialogue today. So thank you.
I want
Yes,
to tell
thank
you, I wish more people like you would sort of take on this started with just some back and forth on the venue net, right? And that meant everybody had an opportunity that was interested enough in this to be a part of it. I just wish I want to thank you and congratulate you for taking some initiative on this, because these kinds of conversations make us all better. So I'm super grateful to you guys, and thank you.
Well, thank
Thanks for the
you.
comments, Russ.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. As I kind of started the call, I think VenueNet is an incredible tool, and I'm so happy to see our industry using it as it's supposed to be used. And when I saw this, I knew this was an opportunity for us to kind of provide some content and feedback and continue the discussion outside of VenueNet. Mac, I saw you kind of raised your hand. I don't know if you were just clapping or you actually just had something to say.
I just wanted to clap it up and I hit the wrong hand button.
Ah, how embarrassing. I'm just kidding.
We appreciate
This is
the
my
class.
life.
Good,
Eric. We all know this.
Well, good. Well, going once, going twice. Anybody have any additional questions? I saw Alexis. We'll make this deck available. We'll also make this recording available. I got to see if I can post it on VenueNet. And since I posted the link to the meeting on VenueNet, if everybody wouldn't mind just sending me a quick note, so I've got your most up-to-date email addresses, I can turn around and send this to you individually, as well as a copy of the video, just to make sure that you get it in case for some reason I can't get it posted on VenueNet. or you can just drop your email address in the chat. I think I can still capture it after the meeting's over. Okay.
Eric, I just sent you my
Well, thank
email,
you.
and you're going to look at that and go, what are you doing? So anyway, anyway,
Because we never talk, right?
right. So
Thanks, everyone. It was great to meet all of you and talk some potty.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
All right, y'all.
Best
Have a great
meeting
day.
ever.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Great
Thanks,
job.
Sheree.
Bye.